Have you ever, like, really stopped and thought about what happens? Like, well,
Yeah.
after. Like, I don't mean ghosts or angels or anything, but what if you just, like, duplicated everything that makes you, like your memories, your thoughts, just copy-pasted into a fresh, brand new body? Pretty freaky to think about, right? Well, that's exactly the rabbit hole we're diving headfirst into today.
It's definitely a fascinating, and I'll admit, pretty unsettling thought experiment. Today, we're going to be breaking down the ideas behind the movie Mickey 17.
Oh, I love this movie.
Yeah, it's been sparking some pretty big conversations. We've been looking at this really interesting discussion and review, and it's raising some huge questions about, identity, mortality, even what it really means to continue existing.
Totally. It's not just hitting the reset button. It's like copying and pasting your whole existence. Seriously, we're going deep on this, like, what makes us us? What does death even mean if you can just make a copy? And get this whole sci-fi thing might be saying something about our own worlds, like some uncomfortable truths we don't want to face.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to really get to the bottom of these big ideas.
Exactly. The nature of consciousness, that deep human fear of just disappearing.
Right, that's a big one.
And how this wild premise might actually be holding up a mirror to our own society.
Oh, like that.
So to kick things off, let's jump into the basic premise of the film. We meet Mickey Barnes, played by Robert Pattinson, and Timo, played by Steven Yeun. These two guys are in a bit of a financial bind. Facing some serious debt, they make a pretty drastic decision. They sign up for a 4-year mission to colonize a new planet.
A one-way ticket, too.
Yeah.
Who knows where? That's a big commitment.
Definitely a huge commitment, no easy way out.
Nope.
And this is where Mickey's job takes a very interesting turn. He's assigned the role of an expendable.
Expendable? What does that even mean?
Essentially, he's like the ultimate guinea pig for the whole colonization thing. Think of it this way. Any mission too dangerous, any experiment with, let's say, some questionable substances, Mickey's the one they send in first.
Wow, that's rough.
Yeah, but here's where things get really wild. When a Mickey dies, it's not game over, like in the traditional sense. They literally print a brand new body for him.
Wait, they print a new body?
Yeah.
Like a 3D printer?
Exactly, a 3D printer for a human body.
Wow, that's intense. So every time he dies, they just print a new one?
Yep. It's not exactly a straightforward transfer of consciousness like you might think, though. It's actually a copy.
A copy, not a transfer. That's an important distinction.
It is. Think of it like this. Your consciousness is like a constantly updating program, right?
Yeah.
And the hardware it runs on is your brain.
Okay, I can see that.
So when a Mickey dies, that particular version of the program, with all its data, all those unique experiences, it basically shuts down. But they make a new piece of hardware, a new body. Then they upload the latest backup of that program.
So it's not really the same you waking up in a new body.
Right. That specific version of Mickey, with his unique life and memories, he's actually gone. This new Mickey, he's more like a clone, identical in terms of memories, but only up to the point of the previous Mickey's death. The review really emphasizes this, and it's what creates this deeply unsettling feeling.
Right.
It's like this illusion of immortality, but there's no continuous self. It's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
And it makes you wonder, what really makes a person? Is it just the memories? Or is it something more?
That's the core question here. And the film has this incredibly powerful visual that really drives this feeling home. The molten lava chute.
Ooh, yeah, I remember that. It was pretty intense.
It was. Every time a Mickey dies, that's where he ends up. Disposed of in this fiery abyss. The review actually makes this connection between this chute and the concept of hell.
Like in mythology and stuff.
Exactly. That ultimate destruction, that oblivion. It serves as this stark reminder of the true finality they all face, even within this cycle of rebirth.
Yeah, I get that. It's a chilling image. So we've got this guy Mickey facing death over and over. But why would anyone sign up for this in the first place? Like, to be an expendable?
Well, that's where the film really starts digging into some deeper societal commentary. Remember, Mickey and Timo are desperate. They're drowning in debt. And this whole expendable thing, it speaks volumes about class disparity.
Like the desperation that comes from inequality.
Precisely. The review highlights this as a key theme. It's something that Bong Joon-ho, the director, explores a lot in his work, like in Parasite and Snowpiercer. His characters are often trapped and exploited by these massive systems. We see those same struggles, those compromises forced upon individuals in Mickey 17.
It's like the system is chewing people up and spitting them out.
It really is. And all these different Mickeys, they're almost like a representation of the corporate machine.
Oh, I see what you mean. Just cogs in a machine, easily replaceable.
Exactly. The system doesn't care about the individual, just about the output. And in this case, the output is colonization, no matter the cost. But the ending of the film, when Mickey breaks free and becomes just Mickey Barnes again, it's like he's rejecting that system.
It's like he's saying, I'm a person, not a product.
Yes, exactly. This desire to reclaim his individuality and live life on his own terms outside this exploitative structure. It makes you think, can true freedom really exist in such a system?
It's a good question. And I love how the film uses these wild sci-fi concepts to talk about real-world issues. It's not just about the cool tech and crazy premise. There's a deeper meaning there.
Right. And speaking of deeper meaning, the review also talks about the ending and how it's kind of abrupt. And there are these loose ends, like what happened to Marshall. It definitely leaves you with questions.
It does, like what happens next?
Right. But circling back to the core themes, the fear of death, that's a huge element in the film. And that question they keep asking Mickey, what does it feel like to die? It really hits home, doesn't it? That primal human fear.
Yeah, that fear of the unknown, of oblivion.
And it makes what Mickey 18 does even more interesting.
What do you mean?
Remember, he accepts his potential finality. He even destroys the 3D printer.
Oh, right. So he can't be replicated anymore.
Exactly. It's almost as if, by seeing this, Mickey 17 starts to come to terms with the idea that he too, as possibly the last copy, will face an actual end. It's a powerful shift from fearing death to maybe even finding peace in its inevitability.
From running from death to accepting it. Deep stuff.
It is. And the review also touches on some other interpretations of the film, like potential themes of colonialism and even fascism.
Really? How so?
Well, it's especially noticeable with Marshall and that chilling line about a pure white planet for a pure race. It's hard not to hear those echoes of historical ideologies, eugenics, and racial purity. It adds another layer of unsettling commentary to the whole thing.
It's scary how easily those ideas can creep back in.
Definitely. Now, shifting gears a bit, the visual style of the film seems to have gotten some mixed reactions. Some viewers felt it was a bit too understated, especially compared to some of Bong Joon-ho's other films. He's known for striking visuals.
Yeah, I can see that. Some of his movies are so visually captivating.
Right. This one is maybe a bit more restrained. Some folks think it was intentional, to highlight the kind of mundane reality of space colonization.
That makes sense. But I also heard some people liked the alien aesthetic in some scenes.
Yes, there were definitely some cool visuals in those scenes. Some even compared it to Ridley Scott's work.
Oh, interesting. So it seems like the visuals spark some interesting debate. What about the pacing of the movie?
That also got some mixed reviews. Some people found it too slow, especially in the third act, and thought it could have been tightened up a bit. Others felt the pacing was necessary, to let the themes really breathe and resonate.
Yeah, it's fascinating how different people can have such different experiences with the same film. Some people like to be swept along, and others want to savor each moment.
Exactly. And then there's that subplot with Kakia and Nesha. That was another point of discussion in the review. Some critics felt it was a bit unnecessary and maybe even slowed things down a bit. It shows how tricky it can be to balance multiple storylines without losing momentum.
It's like walking a tightrope. Too much on one side and the whole thing can topple over. But you know what really stuck with me? That dream sequence with Marshall being reprinted. It was so creepy and unsettling.
Oh, yeah. That was definitely a powerful scene. It's not like it's a real possibility, Marshall coming back. But that fear, it's like a subconscious anxiety about history repeating itself. Like even in this brand new world, the same old patterns of oppression could reemerge.
It's like this deep-seated human worry about power and control. It makes you think. No matter where we go, we can't escape our own nature.
Exactly. And that bowl of sauce.
Oh, yeah, that was weird. What was up with that?
Some see it as representing that class divide we talked about before. Like, even a seemingly generous offering can still reinforce that hierarchy.
It's like, here, have some scraps from my table.
Yeah, it's subtle, but effective. And it all ties back into this larger commentary about humanity, The film contrasts those human conflicts, those destructive urges, with the unity we see in the creepers, those alien creatures.
It's like asking, are we inherently flawed? Like, are we programmed for conflict?
And it doesn't give us easy answers. It really makes you think.
It does. But, despite the mixed reactions to some parts, the review ultimately sees Mickey 17 as a good thing for cinema.
It does. In a world of sequels and reboots and prequels, it's seen as this breath of fresh air.
Yeah, we need more originality, more films that aren't afraid to take risks.
Definitely. It's a call for more daring storytelling, for films that dive into these big cultural questions.
Films that make us think, make us question, maybe even make us a little uncomfortable. So we've explored this wild concept of copied consciousness, the anxieties about identity and mortality, and the ways this movie reflects some unsettling aspects of our own society. But what about you?
That's the key, isn't it? What do you take away from this? After all this talk about copies, does it make you rethink your sense of self? Does it make those unique lived experiences more valuable or less?
And what about that fear of death? How does that resonate with you? I mean, it's a universal fear.
Absolutely. And here's one final thought to leave you with. If you were in Mickey's shoes, knowing each death was the end of that specific you, how would you live each life knowing it's temporary?
Would you play it safe or go all out, knowing you have nothing to lose?
It's a question that really stays with you.
It does. And on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Mickey 17.
We hope it's given you some things to ponder.
Maybe even changed your perspective a bit.
And sparked some new ideas.
Until next time, keep exploring the captivating and the curious.